This is CTM the Podcast, or Conversations That Matter, which is an online program from the McKinney Center, a community arts center that operates under the town of Jonesboro in Jonesboro, Tennessee. We are partially sponsored by the Hope and Action Grant from the East Tennessee Foundation. The McKinney Center is in the Booker T. Washington School, which was the black grade school from 1940 until integration. We record in the Gillespie Building in Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is named for Elmer Gillespie, an alumnus of the Booker T. Washington School. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. This program is to help us learn about people in our community and hopefully humanize one another. Let's all look here and just be like,
oh, yeah,
you see
trying
me?
something new.
I do.
Hey, we're trying the new camera angles this afternoon.
Okay, so the top of your head is about right there. So if I pull it up, it'll get your rest of your body.
It doesn't, I don't know.
There we go. I think that's
Okay, leave it there.
There we go.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's
All right, Michelle's the camera person. So today we're going to keep things a little bit lighthearted for Conversations That Matter in July. And we have our moderators here to just talk with us. We've tried a lot of different things with our format, and I think we expected at the beginning of this year to sit down and make comments about each episode, but you know how busy life is, so maybe we can go back and think about who we've talked to a little bit this year so far and think back on that. And otherwise, I'm just going to let conversation flow. So I'm very excited to have this afternoon, Michelle, Treece, and Brittany Butler. So let's just pretend people don't know who you are. Maybe they've never even watched this before. They don't know what Conversations That Matter is. Y'all introduce yourselves, kind of like we usually do with our guests.
Yeah, okay.
Alrighty.
I'll go first. I'm happy to do this finally. This is a good little summer break.
This is good.
So we get to bother each other on camera. So my name is Brittany Butler. I'm a senior lecturer at East Tennessee State University. I'm in the Department of Chemistry. I've been in Johnson City for about 8 years now, off and on, and have 3 kids, a husband, and I also went back to school, and so I'm in the Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis Department, getting my doctorate in higher education, educational leadership, so not busy at all. Yeah.
And I'm Michelle Treece. I am originally from Morristown. I've been in Johnson City as an adult, I should say. Oh, goodness. I came back in 85, so I've been here since then. I'm a retired teacher from Science Hill High School. I taught biology. I am a triple alumni from ETSU, and I'm currently working at ETSU as a field supervisor for teacher candidates who are ready to graduate at the end of that academic year. I have 2 kids. I have a partner, and she has 2 kids as well. So there's a total of 4 kids in that group. And I just volunteer. I'm involved in lots of different communities, and I love it. I love it. Have a good time. Yeah.
So my first question for the 2 of you is, do you remember when you 2 first met?
I do, and I think that fell down. But
Oh no! Y'all were just looking at the ceiling.
yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, we'll fix that. But
Thank you.
I saw, I was like, oh man.
All right, now it's stable.
Yeah. So I think I remember the first time I saw you, but it was a stalker kind of situation because I remember the that downtown place, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but there was a woman in leadership or some kind of panel discussion with you and Jenny Brock and the lady who's like a commissioner or something in Washington County.
Jody.
Jody. And y'all were a panel at that place that unfortunately closed.
Was it Willow Spring?
I don't.
Willow Tree?
Willow Tree.
I don't know if it was Willow Tree or not, but I remember that very thing. The setting was more of a classroomish kind of thing.
Or you did something at Carver.
Was it Carver, maybe?
I remember I saw
that.
you like 2 times in like a week or 2 times in like 2 weeks or something, and I was like, and she's biology? I have to. So yeah, I stalked you for a little bit.
I remember that. Yes, I was there, but I don't. We didn't talk, right?
No. That's just when I like heard the name, saw your face, and then folks were like, "Oh yeah, Michelle."
And then I remember actually meeting you the first time was at. It was either Black White Dialogue or it was Black White Dialogue.
Probably. Yeah.
Yes, because I was like, oh, you were in Rotary Club something.
Oh, Junior League.
Junior League.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm like, she's in the Junior League.
That's right. I do. I know because that was when I was president.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And so
exactly.
It was a big thing that I got that response a lot that night. Yeah. They're like, you're on Junior League. Yeah.
Black.
So.
Ooh, that's great.
No, that's funny. That's how we.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Exactly, I did. And then you were a guest here. The first.
Oh, that's right.
You were a guest
I was on Zoom back during more COVID times.
Right.
And who were you with?
I was with Sarah Sanders.
Sarah Sanders,
yeah,
exactly.
So she was a friend from Holston Valley.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's so funny. I don't remember the exact time I met you, Brittany. It might have been just through this, and I do remember your kids took classes at the McKinney Center.
Oh, that's
right. Who's that? She's so cool. Does she know that, like, the history of this building? I want to talk to her, but I'm not gonna do that because it's weird. But then I ended up knowing you.
Yeah.
Now we like go roller skating.
I know, and that's so much fun.
And then, way even before George Floyd, something happened in the news. And there was a response in downtown Johnson City. And I remember you spoke at Founders Park.
That was
and you were like, go call, your talk was like, go have coffee with someone different from you. And I was like, that's nice sentiment, but I'm never going to do that. Because I have like social anxiety.
Oh my gosh.
But I believe in the, the theory behind it.
I'm trying to think, what was that? It was something had happened, and we all had a rally.
It wasn't like Charlottesville. Was
It
that before?
It may have been Charlottesville.
Because I think that was before.
It was Charlottesville.
Yeah.
It really was. It was Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
there was like a call
rally. In case
rally.
y'all don't remember, that was when the white
supremacists
gathered in Virginia and ran over a protester.
Right.
Yeah.
Killing them. So that was a scary moment. I remember that. So
those kind of things change you. And when I would drive to Virginia Beach, I would stop in Charlottesville because it was a bigger place, and I thought, okay, again, driving while black, so I thought this is a safer place. So I would stop in Charlottesville for gas and go to the bathroom, that kind of stuff. Almost a little bit beyond halfway. Never have I stopped there since.
Right.
There's a whole other place I stop now, and it's just off the interstate. The world goes in there, and that's where I stop now. So yeah.
I've never had thoughts like that until driving through the middle of Appalachia, and I was still wearing my COVID mask. And I was like, I don't want to just stop at any old gas station because I don't want to have a confrontation about wearing my COVID mask.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. White privilege.
Wow.
But yeah.
Well, we often at least once a year we drive down to New Orleans, and it's like an 11-hour drive. It's long, but we have to plan it so that we don't stop in some places in Mississippi and Alabama. And one time, this was like several years ago, but the little one had to use the bathroom or something, and so we were in Mississippi, and we just pulled off to the next one. And we stopped, but Charlie and my son went in first. And they went in, and when he came back out, he goes, "You can't go in there." He's like, "We're going to have to find some place." He's like, "You don't want to go in there." That's what he said.
Wow.
He's like, "You don't want to go in there." And I was like, and I knew exactly what he meant. And we just got in the car and kept going until we found like a larger, because it was one of these smaller gas station types. We got in the car and just kept driving until we found something like larger, more national chain type stop. Yeah. And he was like, "You don't want to go in there." And I mean, you could see the like Confederate flags from the window, but he was like, yeah. Mm-mm. So he would go like and check it out first.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, yep, nope, knew it, because I wasn't, and I knew to not even go in there first or with him.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, you go check it out, white man.
Okay, so we've been doing this for over 2 years now, and y'all always ask the guests, like, what a time they remember when they were a child where you realize you were different or othered. And I think, Michelle, I know your story because you said you didn't have a lot of that as a child, but you interacted with another little girl who like pointed out that you were black or something like that. Maybe you can tell us that story again.
I was 1965, 66. I was first grade, predominantly white school. Had no clue of all the segregation stuff that was happening around in the nation at that time. But I went in, and my mom, I guess at that age, your parents have to come into the school and get you and take you out at the end of the day. So my mom came in, and we were walking back to the car. And there was a mom and her little girl leaving the school at the same time we were leaving. And my mom says that the little girl said, "Look, Mommy, that girl's dirty." And her mom said, "No, she's not. She's black." And then just like she kept going. And that is the beginning of when, I realized, oh, that's the difference. But I never had any kind of negative experience. My goodness, I never had that I can remember. The name calling and the rocks and the spit and all that kind of crazy stuff that some little kids got. But most of my childhood, I was going to school with predominantly white kids. And so I know I lived in a black neighborhood, but the school that I went to was predominantly white. At some point, second grade, we moved into a housing project, and there were black and white folks all around us, and the schools that we went to from then, predominantly white. There was a predominantly black elementary school on the other side of town where my cousins lived, and they lived in a black neighborhood, and just, you can definitely tell that was a black part of town.
Did anyone in your neighborhood or your cousins make a comment like, "Oh, you go to the white school"?
Never.
Interesting.
But when I went, again, white schools, elementary school, middle school, all the kids from all the other elementary schools came together. But I do remember in middle school and high school, I had lots more white friends than black friends. And I remember feeling that in high school when a lot of the black kids all hung out with each other because they grew up together, and I mean, that same neighborhood. And I was kind of not ostracized from that group, but I just knew this is me and my white friends, and I knew there's a bunch of black folks over there that had black friends. But again, I didn't, it didn't bother me. I was a class clown, and
I feel like you still to this day are just the kind of person who literally could get along with anyone.
That's probably me. Now in the elementary school, where I moved into the projects, I became a big fan of what's that wrestling on television? That little what is that?
WWE.
Yeah, that's it. So I learned a lot of those little moves, and I was mean. I mean, you're not going to bother me and my little brothers. I remember, it's awful. Felicia, if you're out there, I'm not really going to apologize, but hey, I remember you.
Oh my gosh.
But I got in a fight with this girl, and she was making fun of my little brother. And I remember picking up a broken brick that was like in their yard, and threw it at her. And she was on a bicycle, and I threw it, and if Felicia was like, she was running from me on this bike, but she looked and the brick was on its way.
Oh
and
my
she
gosh.
ducked. And that is the only way this girl's alive today. I remember that. I'm probably going to go to jail for confessing, but
I know. What's the statute of limitations on that? We can edit that out.
But I mean, I was a little, I don't want to say I was a bully, but I guess I was. But I wasn't going to let you. I stood my ground, and I'm not going to let you pick on my brothers. That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah. But I never, back to that initial question, I never felt any of that. And I feel, at this point in my life, after hearing a lot more and learning about it, and my mom's passed away now, I don't know those firsthand accounts. And I hate that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to know. I've seen, little things on television and all that. But my mom shared some things when they were younger going to school. But, any firsthand accounts of what went on in Morristown at that point, I don't have any.
They say that there's a certain generation that just doesn't want to talk about it. Which you gotta respect to a certain degree. But yeah.
Yeah. I think kids, teenagers, I don't know, maybe you might with your kids. I think this is the group that we don't want to hear about that. But I think the parents and maybe even some of their grandparents have flipped it where, okay, we want to hear more about it now. Because we know that things are still going on. And I think, we want you to know what happened.
Yeah.
We want you to know what's going on. And I don't know, maybe in 20 years, this generation is like, we don't care about that. May say the same thing. Hopefully by then, things will be different, but I know. Right.
Brittany, you went to Catholic school, is that right?
Yeah, from kindergarten to college,
Yeah.
technically. Yeah, so I was in predominantly white schools as well the whole time. Still am.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
to a certain extent, still am. But similar experience. I never really had any overt instances or things go on. Everything I think I experienced was more subtle, and things I think folks would call microaggressions today. They didn't have the nice term for it back then, but it's, things people didn't think were kind of backhanded compliments, those type of things. Because I just remember a lot of, just an inordinate amount of surprise when you give a presentation or something, like, oh, you speak so well.
Yeah.
And I was in elementary school when Colin Powell was doing his big thing. And so they, they're like, oh, you're like a female Colin Powell. And, at the time, you're like 11, 12 or something. You don't know.
So, okay, thank you.
It's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like, well, how am I supposed to speak? Or how am I supposed to act? And going to high school, it was the same thing. I went to St. Mary's Dominican High School. And let me put this into context for you. That Supreme Court justice, the one that's like 44 or something, the young one.
The new girl?
On the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't remember her name.
The
woman, the young one who's like
yes.
a little bit.
Not the black girl.
No.
Okay.
The one before.
The one that just got elected.
The one before.
I see her face.
Kentanji, I think. But she went to Dominican high school. So I was like, yay, toast to praise. But it was the same thing. We, they had the table of all the black girls because it was all girls. My mom raised me very sheltered and strict. So I went to all girls Catholic high school, uniforms every day and everything. But they had the table of black girls, and that's who I hung out with for, thinking like, oh, this will be someplace where I could feel comfortable and, the sea of high school students. But I was a big nerd in the band and the choir, and so I think I missed a lot of the high school drama just from being so, type A with academics and everything. But, I didn't really fit in there either because I didn't have these stereotypical black qualities or traits and things. I grew up listening to like Green Day and Nine Inch Nails and Slipknot, and I was heavy into alternative music at the time and things like that. But just, so we didn't click on that level, and we were all very high academic achievers, but there still was that like subtext of cultural background that like we didn't really share. And so like I don't talk to anyone from high school now. I don't think I have any. I'm one of those folks who don't keep a lot of close friends just because, once I'm like people.
I still have a bunch of my high school friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
But to visit and all that, we don't do much of that.
Yeah, Facebook's good for that. I do have. I still do some Facebook stuff, but yeah.
Wow. I know my freshman year, my sophomore year, my sophomore year roommate played basketball at ETSU. Mm-hmm. And one of her friends that was also on the basketball team, Black, female, Catholic. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that I ever knew Black people could be Catholic. I was a sophomore in high school, and I'm like, and her so first I knew her name was Gina. I'm like, you're Catholic? Like Black people can be Catholic? And Gina's like, oh my gosh, yeah. So then her family came to pick her up at like spring break or something.
This was college? College, okay.
Sophomore year.
Yeah.
And her grandmother came with her, who was a nun. Mm-hmm. Wait. Can your grandmother be a nun? No, aunt. It was her aunt.
Okay.
It was her aunt. Her aunt came, and she was a nun and got out in the whole black habit. And I was like, oh my God, a black nun? Yeah. I was probably taking Polaroids out the window. And I remember telling
my sister act is so
important.
Yeah. Yes.
And how
I remember telling my mom about it.
How funny.
Like, Black Catholics, really?
That is hilarious.
No.
Because my sophomore year in college, okay, so Loyola University is a Catholic university. And so my sophomore year in high school, I wasn't in college yet. Sophomore year in high school, there was a program at Xavier University College, which is a predominantly Black college. And I did a chemistry program there over the summer. And something happened, and one of the TAs, the teaching assistants, were students at Xavier. And someone did something, and they were like, oh, Lord. And they were like, what is it, the thing that Catholics do? Like this? And like, I was like, it was the opposite reaction.
Yeah.
I was like,
y'all don't know that?
I'm like, there's someone who doesn't know the Catholic? And they were just like, they literally were like, what's this thing y'all do? And I was like, and I was still super Catholic at the moment, but it was the exact opposite. I was around so many, because New Orleans is very Catholic, and everybody was
That's amazing.
Catholic. And so they had the predominantly Black Catholic church that we went to, All Saints. And so we had some Black priests, some Black deacons, and then majority Black folks. And it was just a thing. It's just like everybody's Catholic. So,
wow.
How funny.
Good. Yeah. What's that thing?
What's that thing?
This is an awful story. My again, Black people in Catholicism. When we were growing up, we would always. This is awful. We would always watch the Catholic Mass for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I remember my aunt. Which I know you in heaven, Sheila. You listening? And she would say that when the priest would go through blessing and they would have the incense. Mm-hmm. He would say, if I can play dominoes, so can you. If I can play dominoes, so can you. So,
oh my God.
I know it's awful. So fast forward, I am now attending Catholic church. Mm-hmm. One of my partners Catholic at the time, and my ex. And I'm like, oh my God, they really do say something that sounds like that. You probably can tell me what it is, but something about Dominice or something.
It's Latin for the name of the Father. In nomine Patri, Domino something. Yeah, it's Latin. It's been a while. Yeah.
So at one point I'm like, oh, Sheila, you were right. Oh my goodness. Isn't that something? Just we live our lives and we learn.
Did either of you have teachers that were black in school?
I did not have a black teacher. I've never had a black teacher, but at my elementary school and my high school, there were black teachers there. But I never actually had them, and they all knew my mom.
Yeah.
I remember it's elementary school. I got in a fight in the playground, and Miss Anderson knew I got in a fight in the playground and called my mom. Celine, she'll be in a fight at school. I just want you to know she's got in a fight. She said, it was a little white girl. And then my mom, I got home and mom like, I know you got in a fight. Miss Anderson's already told me.
Wow.
So, but I never had them. Not even through college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, think about this while Brittany answers. I'm interested when you knew you were going to be a teacher.
Okay.
And like, how did that affect you?
Yeah, my kindergarten teacher, Miss Williams, was a black lady, and I found out recently she just retired.
Oh wow.
Like a year or two ago or something like that. Like she had been a kindergarten teacher for this entire time, like 35 years or something.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but kindergarten, and then that was it. There, same thing in high school. We had a black guy who was the physics teacher, which was like big deal, but I didn't take physics, and in high school should have, but didn't. And then in college, I don't think I had. No, didn't have any. Especially being in like chemistry, I don't know if like being in the hard sciences, it's harder to come across.
When you mentioned kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher was black, Miss Clark. Miss Clark had a Gorder, one of those. But I didn't even think about her because I really don't know if that was an actual kindergarten or if she just babysat a bunch of kids at her house. But we were all kindergarten age, and we learned.
Gotcha.
I mean, I knew my ABCs, 1, 2, 3, all that, going into first grade.
So she was a teacher.
She was a teacher, but I don't know
regardless.
if she was like a certified kindergarten teacher, pre-K. I don't know. I don't know because that was early '60s. But, in college, I went into college to be. I knew I was going into biology, and my initial career desire was to draw the illustrations in biology books. You know, when you open up.
I know someone who does that.
Yeah, really?
Well, she's a medical illustrator.
Yeah.
And does,
That's it.
She went to John Hopkins for it. And she's so good at art.
Yes.
And then, she was a medical
Those
illustrator.
are rare people.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted.
So
Now, not that
that's
I was an artist by any means, but I could work on that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And then my sophomore year, I had the most amazing teachers. Karen Renzaglia was one of my teachers. Diane Nelson. I know you watching Diane's out there. Incredible. And I remember sitting in Karen's class going, oh my God, I want to be you when I grow up. And I shifted just like that. I went on and finished my biology degree, and then I added on another year for all the education stuff. Probably that last couple of years was education stuff. But I remember that was when it all shifted. And man, that's it for my life.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yes.
I remember.
I'm sure you didn't even think about like the meaning of how important it would be to be an educator in Washington County, Tennessee, being a person of color. I'm sure that wasn't even in your mind. You were just living your life.
And I thought when I finished ETSU, I'm going to go back to Morristown and live in Morristown. And I went back for 1 year, worked at a HBCU there, and then did a summer at Tusculum with ETSU's Upper Bound. And then I was able to get back to ETSU because I couldn't find a teaching job. So I got back on campus and I worked with housing for 6 years, and then finished my master's in counseling. Thinking, and again, never, I wasn't sure when am I going to teach. I got this certificate, but. So I finished my master's in counseling, and the very next week there was an opening for a biology teacher. Wow. And I moved into that. And no, I never would have realized the impact of teaching I mean, I could cry now about it. I ran into a student 2 or 3 days ago who I love, Tyler. I know you're out there. Love Tyler. Just wild kid in class. Come on, man, you got to get your work. And I saw him. He looks great. He's got his own business. And, you know, I just think when kids still know you, and I can still know that kid, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So, yeah, I weekly I get something that's like teaching them.
Still getting the rewards.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been out, 7 years? 6 years, 7 years at least. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It is. And then you being the chemistry teacher of the world.
Which I don't know. I'm very good at dissociating, and I don't even, that doesn't even enter my mind when I show up, to a classroom, and I have to.
It's not necessarily your job.
Right.
That's such a huge ask.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not you mean to, it probably is affecting some worldviews, but that's not even your job to be like, hey, I'm a black person.
Right. Well, and I didn't, and I'm so, like I said, I'm all over the place normally, and so it doesn't even register until, I've been shown up for class first day, and, you see people looking around, and, they're like, and they'll say, are you our instructor? And I'm like, yes. I don't even know what they're, where they're coming from. What do they mean?
You look so young.
And that's what they say. So that's what I'm going to take it as. Because they'll say, oh, I thought you were a graduate student, or I thought you were the TA or something. And then this was back when I was at Kingsport campus, and I was in lab. So I had my lab coat on, my lab goggles on. And this disgruntled IT worker comes in to hook my computer up, and he was just like, do you have access to this computer? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, because I don't know. Sometimes they don't give TAs access to the computer. And I was like, well, it is my computer. My name's on the door.
See?
And he was like, and oh my God, the attitude changed so quick, and was just like, oh, happy smile, and so stuff like that, it takes a while. You have to beat me over the head with it for me to realize things like that. But generally, it's all been, real positive. I wouldn't have picked Washington County, Tennessee out of a hat.
Yeah.
But same thing for graduate school, going to Chapel Hill. I didn't know anything about that area either, because my whole family is from New Orleans, had been in New Orleans, and I was the first one to kind of leave for graduate school. And they talk about first generation students in college. My dad has an MBA, so I didn't, I knew a little bit about college, but that's where it stopped, right? It was first generation graduate student, where my family still thought I was going to come home on the summers, and they didn't know that the TAing was what paid me to be in graduate school, and just little things like that, how to navigate that. And my mom's hilarious. The only thing we know about other states are when they show up in songs. So so when I said I was going to UNC Chapel Hill, she would just be like, Petey Pablo, North Carolina, throw your hands up. And that's the only reference. That's the only reference we had to North Carolina, because we were so insulated in New Orleans. And I went up there on I might have said this before, but my visitation weekend to North Carolina to visit to see if I wanted to go. They bring us out, and it was during March Madness with the basketball.
Oh, that's a wild thing, huh?
Oh my God.
But we are outside on the balcony after dinner, and I'm so embarrassed to this day. But I was like, oh, and they were like, oh yeah, all this crowd they blocked the street off from March Madness. And I was like, oh, does this happen every year? I was like, oh, it's because of the basketball game? Does this happen I'm surprised it didn't reject my acceptance. Oh, you can't come here.
You're not allowed.
I asked if March Madness happened every year at UNC Chapel Hill. on Franklin
grew up
Street.
near there, so
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it.
You're like, just
I didn't know
totally
any different.
oblivious. Yeah,
Oh my
totally
gosh.
oblivious. But, you know.
I'm like, oh, there's a professional basketball league? Who cares?
I know, yeah. Like, I'm more into musicals. Like,
Okay, I have a question. Do you both think that being Black and growing up in these predominantly white environments lends to you thriving in Washington County, Tennessee?
1,000%.
I would
for me.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1,000, because I've seen the opposite, right? We've seen people, at least I have, I've seen people who have struggled, and it's because the cultural differences, I would think.
We've had several people say
Yeah.
that they, wherever they came from to move to Washington County, this is where they've experienced the most
Yeah.
racism, which makes me think they have come from cultures not like Washington County.
Right.
And I think growing up with a bunch of white friends and white folks probably has helped. Right.
Because it's
I
not,
agree.
I don't think we're there yet. It's not come as you are. I think businesses, schools, whatever, everyone's talking diversity, inclusion, belonging, but it's not come as you are yet. It's
Fit in
you
when
fit
you get
in when you
here,
get here.
and we'll accept you as
Yeah.
you fit in.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a weird thing about my upbringing. Like, it's so ingrained in me. Like, this is who I am. But I think it's, you are a product of your environment. And so growing up in a predominantly white environment, my mom and my uncles and my cousins and things, they would joke and say things like, when we were getting older, I guess, and before we started dating, like, oh, you better not bring any white boys around, and then again, I was like, oh, what are these things, white boys? Make it like exotic or something, so it's like, you better not, and so it's just weird that, like, but I tell my mom all the time, I'm like, you put me into schools with all white boys.
Yeah.
So you grow up and that's what you're exposed to.
know.
That's what you know. That's what you're gonna like. Like, I mean, and people don't, I think it's the same thing with like religion too. If you grow up in a certain area, I had a friend in graduate school who was very hardcore Christian. And I was just like, well, if you were born in Turkey or Saudi Arabia, you probably, and I even put the probably in there. I was like, you probably would not be Christian. And she's like, oh no, I would be. And I was just like, okay. So like, you're just a product of your environment. So I think we've been in environments like this before. And so it's not as, not as challenging as it is for others.
And I know my immediate family, my mom had 5 siblings. So one of them, he sang opera, like classical opera, right? Black male. I have my aunt Sheila, who I mentioned earlier. Everybody for the most part is some kind of a musician, but Sheila, beautiful voice. And got into wanting to sing, to like be a country music singer. Like, she wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Black female. And my middle brother, incredible piano player. My youngest brother is more of the southern black guy. Like, he has the southern accent that you would hear. I have one of my uncles, very strong southern accent. So even within my immediate family, you have all of these different ways. My aunt, when she finished college here in Morrison, she went to Morrison College. She went to Detroit, and she was like the one who was, wow, Evelyn's, made it out of Morristown, and da da da. And, so there's all these different ways to be in my family.
Yeah.
And every we might have talked about some of y'all a little bit, but everybody was able to do and be how they were, and I think that's added to, you do you. Yeah. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I'm having this moment where I'm like, okay, I should try to be more understanding of people not being able to step out of that way they grew up, because I didn't grow up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in a way more metropolitan area that was a lot more diverse, and I had a very different experience than a lot of people who grew up here. So understanding that is important too.
Yeah. I heard something this week that just every light in the room came on for me, but I know we all have heard the phrase, I think, therefore I am, Descartes. There is a idea out of Africa called, I think it's Ubuntu. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And I think the phrase, and help me out here, the phrase is not, I think, therefore I am, but is, we are, therefore I am. So it's very different. The I think, therefore I am is a total European concept. The other one, it's all about me.
Yeah.
I am the one. Everything centers around me. The Ubuntu is from Africa, and it's more of a community-based thing. And so taking those two phrases and applying that to the mentality of those in Europe and the colonizers that came over from Europe, who also led to white supremacists in America, I believe that whole mind frame is all about me.
Right.
And when you mix in that culture with people who have the Ubuntu mind frame of it's community, and then it's me. Those are two completely different mind frames. Like, how in the world will they ever fit?
Mesh.
Yeah.
And that's it's a clash, right? It's a clash then, it's a clash now. And that phrase reminds me of, there's the golden rule. Treat others how you would want to be treated. But I recently, I don't know who came up with it, but the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated. And it's like,
wow.
Because if you are,
greedy
for the death penalty, against abortion, greedy, and you treat someone else the way you want to be treated, how oppressive is that against that other person? But the platinum rule is to treat others the way they want to be treated, and not project your own personal stuff onto someone else. And it's just like mind blown. It's like, yeah, duh.
That is amazing. I've never heard that.
Me neither.
Yeah. HBUC folks.
See, I'm going to that church.
Yeah. Because I'm not religious anymore, but I'll go there for community and just
yeah, I think it's a great church. That is a really great reference.
Yeah, because it makes you. It's the same thing though. Community. It makes you think about the whole as opposed to the individual, and trying to do what's best for as many people as possible. I always think we overcomplicate things and think that everything is so complicated, and it's just it's not really that complicated.
No,
because people, I was thinking back to when the same-sex marriage legislation and people were talking about that and stuff, and it's like, oh, if two men can marry each other, then what's next? You can marry a horse. And it's like, why right? They're trying to make it so complicated, and it's just like, no one's saying that. So I can't get into it too much because I know start getting
Political.
mad and
Right.
yeah,
Y'all
but
get mad and ugly.
yeah, so I got too many things on my plate
To go there.
to go there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like I'm too
Exactly.
busy. I'm too busy.
Yes.
Well, what other questions do you have for each other, and or is there anyone we've talked to so far this year that has stuck out to you? I can't even remember who we spoke to in January and February, but I know we just did Teresa and Katie talking about Melungeons. We had
Jason and
William.
That was
We
good.
had
That was great.
Faye. What's her last name?
Faye Rutledge and
Faye
Lisa
Rutledge
Black.
and Lisa Black.
Mhm.
They were great.
We had, did we have Ren and Jason Black this year?
No,
That
was
was
that
that last year?
Yeah.
We just
Let's-
had Jason and William
Okay.
together. Yeah,
I knew we had Ren and Jason at some point.
yeah. It's all running together
Exactly.
now, but
And then we had the husband and wife, I think. Was that
yes,
Oh,
that
yes.
was January.
Okay.
Yes,
that was
very
Because
first.
we have
Wait
to.
for-
I like that idea. We have to get more.
another
Another husband wife
Yeah.
on here.
I've got a
I like
couple
it.
in mind that I'd love to have.
I think that would be
Yeah.
funny. But yeah, it's crazy how we still, like for me, because I moved here initially, I moved to Johnson City in 2009-ish, but then left for like 3 years in the middle and then came back 2017. And so it's still like meeting new people each month, and folks, it's like, oh yeah, where you been? And and see, you know, so it's always really interesting getting to do this, even though I have
It is.
zero time, but it's good.
It is. I like it. I think it's really fun getting to know these folks and digging in and getting those viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot, with the McKinney Center and, the centricity on stories in Jonesboro. And, was it you that went on no, Teresa said she went on a cruise recently
yeah.
and she was telling a woman about it, and she was like, if you know someone's story, you can't hate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the woman like almost started crying. She was like, that's a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
And, I feel like that's what we're striving to do. Because when you sit in a room and have an individual conversation, you're humanizing one another. And I think that's what we're striving to do with Conversations That Matter.
I think what I see is that compared to what you see on television and all these places where no one will pause and just listen to what someone has to say. We do that. We will pause. What do you have? And I think, I look at, gosh, you can point out any little discrepancy in any place with politics, whatever, if you would just pause and let them talk. You would you would hear what's being said. And I don't think people do enough of that pausing. I think people are ready to jump and no, and just be quiet and just listen.
Yeah.
I have that mind made up already.
Already made up. You're talking, sharing, and they're in their head thinking about what, as soon as you take a breath, this is what I'm going to say, because I don't even know what you're talking about right now, but I'm thinking about what I'm going to, there's that breath.
The other thing that's powerful about that is like, let's pretend we record these every month and no one else watches them.
Right.
You're still giving an hour and a half to an individual in this community to sit there and be heard.
Yeah.
Which it's not true, because all of our videos have way more views than like over 30 at least, every one of them. But even if it didn't go out into the world, you're still giving some people who probably haven't felt heard in this community at times an hour to just tell about themselves. Like, that's a certain amount of like empowerment that you're giving to someone.
Yeah, and even time to process the questions and answers. So, it's probably stuff you don't think about every day.
Right. Right.
And see how it's impacted you. And
you might be like Brittany. You might be teaching and never thinking about if someone is doing a microaggression to you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you need to come to Conversations That Matter and sit down and think about it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I do know we had Vincent Dial on, and that is a treasure to me.
Mm-hmm.
That is a treasure to me, that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've got a Vincent Dial Day
Our
coming
recording
up.
of it is terrible.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
forever mad about that.
Nah.
But it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of it, you can hear him. So,
Mm-hmm.
talk about him.
Oh gosh.
Some
Vincent.
people may not know who he is.
Well, Vincent was my 7th grade band teacher, student teacher.
Oh,
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, met him in the 7th grade, and then truly, I would never have remembered him until he pointed out to me, hey, I was your student teacher in 7th grade.
Wow.
But he went on to play in a band with my uncle, who was an incredible guitar player. He left town and went, who knows where, but he played the backup rhythm guitar to a lot of R&B bands that are probably more than I would ever know. And then Vincent, who graduated from Carson Newman, then somehow within the years made his way to Johnson City and was the band director at the middle school. And I was in Johnson City, and I started playing in the Johnson City Community Band, and he was the band director for that as well. And then he moved from being the band director to assistant principal at Scienceville High School, and then I started teaching at Scienceville High School. So again, just kind of.
I didn't know he was vice principal.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He was band director. Then he became principal at Northside Elementary School, and then either he moved to Northside and then the Scienceville High School assistant, or he was assistant at Scienceville and then went to Northside. I'm not sure of the order of that, but that was his circuit. I retired, and then I got involved in NAACP and some other groups, and then started working with him there. And we did African drum together a lot with Emoja opening ceremony and things like that. So just a wonderful connection.
Yeah.
Wonderful connection.
So what is the Vincent Dial Day?
So Vincent Dial Day is a back to school day that Micah Taylor, who is the owner of Tailor Made Barbershop, has, and it's coming up in August. I can't tell you the dark date.
July 29th.
29. July 29. Thank you. That's right, because school starts
I was
before
playing dumb.
Yeah,
The McKinney Center's going to be there.
Perfect. Nice. But it's just a back to school bash, and now he is calling it the first annual Vincent Dial Day, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
important
amazing.
for us to be a part of that because Vincent Dial, he also even helped teach bucket drums at the McKinney Center
nice.
at one point back in the early days of McKinney Center. And then he was in a lot of our community plays.
Yeah.
And he was about to be in the closest one we just had before he passed away. Like, there's a picture of him with the group meeting before the play really got started. And I think he even went to Jules and was like, I'm having health issues, so I'm gonna step back. So it was
He was our the guest of honor for our NAACP Freedom Fund, and we had to shift everything around.
Yeah. But a huge supporter of education and the arts, and so it'll be good to celebrate him that way.
Yes.
On the 29th.
Wonderful guy.
Yeah. So we have more time.
Yeah.
Questions for each other.
I've been meaning to ask you about the Johnson City School Board. Sorry, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. But they were doing some kind of committee work or something towards diversity with teachers or something, trying to increase the diversity among teachers, right, in the Johnson City school system?
So before I rolled off, we had a 5-year plan, and part of that 5-year plan included increasing the diversity within Johnson City schools.
Like of staff?
Well,
or...
You know, when you say it, you're talking teachers, administrators.
Okay.
But sometimes I want to think they think of just staff. I say just, meaning, okay, we're going to get more folks on, but I think it's important that students see these teachers, see administrators, see those positions, as opposed to more cafeteria folks, more folks that are working janitorial services. I spent my last 4 years at the alternative school, and when I walked in the front door, I was like, this is where y'all keep all the black people. Because there were so many black folks at the alternative school. But, you know, there's so many black kids at the alternative school, so maybe that's the thing. I don't know. I'm not on the board anymore, so I really don't mind what I say. But yeah, that is the intent. And now the question is, how are those things going to happen? And I was, when I was on the board, I was on one of the subcommittees for that. And I'm still wanting to see what are your action steps to get that to happen. And they had an opportunity to hire 3 principals, assistants, and none of those were of color this past year. So that kind of thing bothers me when I know that. And I love Johnson City schools, but I know they can do better. Yeah, they can do better.
And that kind of goes into that whole thing that I've been thinking about of being ready. It's like you can bring all of the diverse people,
but are they going to want to?
But are they going to want to live here?
Because
are they exactly? Are they going to be supported? Are they going to be able to come in, do a job as they are?
Right.
Or are they going to feel ostracized and othered
and part of me is that we have to do things to make sure our diverse folks that come into this community feel welcomed here. We can't make them stay,
right?
But we can make them feel welcomed just by what we do invitation wise. I'm a part of NAACP, and I think we need to be the welcome wagon. Remember back in the day, they used to have welcome wagons. When you moved into a new place, it's like, welcome, here's your basket of whatever, and here are all the things that are to your disposal in our community.
Yeah.
And we don't do that anymore because I'm afraid you're going to call me a name or you're going to, burn my house down. It's so, but we have to get back to providing a way for those folks that come into this area to feel welcome.
Yeah.
So, to spin that question into maybe a more positive light, do you feel like Johnson City, Washington County has changed over the years? Or is moving in a positive direction? And I'm saying this, I'm an outsider as a white person, but I'm seeing places like Langston coming into the picture, and if I moved here and I think about that, I might feel like, okay, there's something. I don't know. What do you think?
I like that. I think Langston is doing some things. McKinney Center. I think we're seeing more. Umoja. There's the Hispanic Cultural Festival.
Tri Pride.
So those small little groups are doing things. But when I think of Washington County and Johnson City as a whole, the big festivals, when I look at the festivals in general, no. I mean, I look at the Fun Fest is happening, and the first thing I do is I look at the music.
It's Boys to Men.
Well, that's great. Yes.
I was gonna say.
But I'm good for that. But every other day, it's not. Or I look at that's the kind of stuff that I look at. Music on the square. I mean, there's a lot, and it's kind of like our cultural upbringing.
Yeah.
I'm used to that kind of music.
Right.
I've learned to like some kinds of bluegrass just for the skill.
Yeah, that's me. Because I played the clarinet and stuff, so music background, and so I love, like, I have been to the Down Home when
Right.
oh gosh, I'll forget their name. It'll come back to me. But it's a little group with a violin and banjo and
Yeah.
a bass.
I used to like
Yeah.
my professor Karen Rizogli. Once I graduated and was working here, she was still here, and we used to all get together and go to Down Home, and I would be the only black person in Down Home.
That's like still today.
Is that still?
Yeah. So yeah.
But I'm going in with my white friends.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. But I mean, how, like, if I was not on my medication for the amount of social anxiety that I have, like, there's no way I would walk in there otherwise.
See,
Like,
and
it's
You've
a
gone
thing.
to the roller skate rink without me.
Hell no. No. Okay, let me tell you how my mind works, right? Large building, don't know there's no windows. I don't go into places with no windows because I need someone to see what's going on from the outside. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
In a million years would not have gone to that place.
Yeah.
Because I didn't, no, I had no point of reference, or there's places that I haven't been because I'm like, I don't know if it's a cool place or not.
I mean, I can relate to that. No, I mean, you have a different anxiety, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I understand. I'm like,
But yeah,
where
just-
am I parking?
Yeah.
What kind of food do they have there?
Yeah.
Who's gonna be there?
Yeah.
I get it, but yeah, that's funny. That's funny. I'm glad I asked you that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I have like normal
Well,
social
I made Ben go
anxiety.
with me the first time.
See, you need, yeah. And then on top of that, like, I have anxiety on top of anxiety. Like, it's better now, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I did some. So in college, I still went to college in New Orleans, but I lived on campus, and my family was like 25 minutes away. And so I still would, my thing was I would wake up early every semester, like 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and walk my class route. So I would know what the building looked like, so I wouldn't be like the freshman looking like I didn't know where I was going. And I would have to map out how long it took me to get between classes so I wouldn't be late, and all kind of like just unnecessary things. And I would do the same thing at Chapel Hill because I moved there by myself, and I didn't drive till I was 20. So I would wake up early on a like 6 o'clock Saturday morning to drive to like the Walmart, so I would know like how to get there without a lot of cars being on the road. So yeah, it's a whole thing. Now kids will change you though. Kids will
Speaking
help.
of kids, I'm gonna have to go pick up my child right
Because you
now.
just don't care after that.
Well,
It's like,
and,
whatever.
and you just got to do it.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Well, y'all can make final comments, but I just want to say thank you both for doing this and for sticking with it so long. And I enjoy it, and I hope it's bringing a small amount of empowerment to some people, and some conversations that wouldn't necessarily always happen. So creating a space for that has been really cool, and it's part of our mission at the McKinney Center because of the history of our building and our staff. We just care about this stuff, and we care about people, and we want to give people a voice. And so I get paid for this. Y'all get a little bit of payment thanks to the grants we've received, but I just really appreciate it that you both have given your time to do this. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, selfishly, it's like fun to do.
Yeah.
It's like one of the funnest things I get to do at my job, so I always enjoy talking to you two.
I agree, and I appreciate you for doing this. I mean, I just think it's one of the best things. I think it is one of the best things that I'm involved in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just for me, it's just such a different outlet, an opportunity. I don't get to do things like this too often, so just to have that mental break from work and kids. Sometimes they're over there eating Cheetos or something very loudly, but they're, you know, but yeah, it's nice to have a place to come and talk to adults and talk about these things and give people that space. That's it exactly, though. I think giving people a space to share.
I won't call this individual out, but there is a person that is a teacher and a participant in a lot of the plays that we do at the McKinney Center, who was recently saying, I feel more accepted and like I am part of a true community at the McKinney Center more than when I walk into a church. And that for me is like why I do anything that I do at my job. It's like, well, if you look at the story of our building, it was like used to separate people. Now it's to try to do the opposite. And to hear that feedback is just like, okay, we're getting there.
No, that's awesome.
So, very, very cool.
That's pretty cool. That is.
Yeah. And I hope everyone, you know, can feel that way about the McKinney Center. So.
We should plug Crowns.
Yes,
because that will be coming up.
Oh my gosh.
I have my ticket already.
Good. Michelle, you gotta get one.
I know. I gotta get one.
On
I gotta get one.
So, Crowns, I haven't seen it before, but it's a musical, and it's like a gospel musical. So you're going to feel a little bit like you're going to church.
Okay. I love music, any kind of music.
There's a clip already going around on Facebook of some of the singing from like their beginning rehearsals, and it's incredible. So that's going to be August 18th through 20th, and it's a partnership with Umoja, and it's a fundraiser for the McKinney Center and Umoja.
Okay.
Tickets are $20. You can get them right now, jonesboro.com/tickets. So yeah, that's a do not miss. It's going to be
looking forward to it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All righty. Folks, I hate to leave. I got to get my son.
Yeah, we'll be back on the other side.
On the other side.
All right.
That's great. Bye.
Bye.